All right, everybody, welcome back. My name is Gillis the Kid, and I have another review here for you. This time we're going to be taking a look at the StrikerDC controller for the Sega Dreamcast. This controller is made by a company called Retro Fighters, which actually started off as a Kickstarter, believe it or not. But we're going to take a look at it, and we're going to compare it to the original Sega Dreamcast controller. So let's get started here. Now, Retro Fighters, they make all sorts of controllers. They make controllers for the Super NES, the Sega Saturn, Sega Genesis, Nintendo 64, and the Nintendo Switch. This is one of their newer ones that came out. I just ordered this, and we're going to take a look. So in the box, you get these cool stickers. They look like 8-bit characters. And they give you some other instructions. Now they give you this cool keychain too. I think that was a really cool touch. And then we have the Striker controller. Now the first thing you're going to notice when you see this controller is that it's very similar to an actual Xbox controller. So if you have an Xbox One controller, especially the white one, you'll notice this is pretty similar. So it's like a mixture of a Dreamcast and an Xbox controller, which is not a bad thing. And we're going to take a look at this one. So for all you people out there who've never had a Dreamcast before, in 1999, this is what the original Dreamcast controller looked like. So when you held it, your hands was really close together. It had a really awkward D-pad, and your fingers used to slip off of it. I mean, look at this thing. It's pretty awkward. They had a start button right here. There was a cable coming out of the bottom. And then you had your X, Y, A, and B buttons, which I believe Microsoft copied off of. They even have the same colors too. But it's not unknown for another company to copy off of another one. Then you got your joystick here. Now in the back there was 2 triggers, which was really good for first-person shooters in my opinion. So you had your left and right triggers. There was no such thing as like pressure-sensitive buttons or anything like that back in the late 90s. Now, one of the coolest thing about the original Dreamcast controller were these 2 ports in the back, and that was for your VMU, which is it was called a VMU, which stands for Visual Memory Unit, and it had a screen on it with buttons. Some of the games you can play on here there was like a game from Sonic Adventure. Some people will probably remember like the Tamagotchis that came out back then, but it had a screen on it, and you would basically just pop it in like this. You would slide it in, and if you were playing a game like Resident Evil or something like that, you can see your life on the screen. Some games it was really useful, some games not so much. So that was the visual memory unit. And then you had your jump pack here, which was really similar to the Nintendo 64's jump pack, but this was called the jump pack. Nintendo 64 was called the Rumble Pack. But the jump pack, it slid in the second slot in the back, and it clicked down just like that. Now when you had the VMU and the jump pack on your controller, it added a little bit of weight to it, not too much, but I never complained about it. Some people didn't like it, but I'll give you a side view here. That's basically what it looked like when you had both in your controller. I really love these 90 controllers, though. They were so creative, but it was also they were just starting to experiment with controllers back in the late 90s. And by the time the Dreamcast came out, the PlayStation 2 was on its way, and of course the Dreamcast didn't last very long, And that was it. This was Sega's last console. So now we have this controller, and this has a 10-foot cable on it. So you're not going to have a problem with length. You know, back in the 90s, some controllers had really short cables, and you had to sit really close in front of the TV. And this controller feels absolutely amazing. And I love this D-pad. If you're playing games like Street Fighter or something like that, now we have an actual D-pad we can use. You got your start button just like this one. It's even got the same shape, so I'm glad they kept that. And the buttons are a little bit closer too, as you can see. So you got your X, Y, B, and A button. They're clicky too. These buttons weren't that clicky. Actually, these feel like pressure sensitive buttons. Who knows? But these are really clicky. And then they have a clear button right here. It's actually called clear. That's pretty clicky. And then they have a turbo button. Now, I have no idea what the turbo button is really for, but I hear it's going to add like extra features in certain games that you play. The control stick is it's a little bit loose than the original. Like as I'm spinning the original control stick, it snaps back in place faster than this one do. This is a little bit loose. And then on the top you have your right and left shoulder buttons. These are clicky. They don't really press down too far. I'm pressing down really hard. And then on the back you have your left and right trigger buttons. And these feel really good. Let me give you a side view here. So they feel really good. And you pressing down on them. And then you have your Retro Fighters logo. You got the traditional Dreamcast controller screen here. It's actually a little bit bigger and wider. I really like that. And you got your two ports, just like this one. I'm going to take these out so you can see. So when you flip them both over, you got your two ports here. These are a little bit thinner than this one. This had a lot of plastic on it. So that's how it looks. And this controller is fully functional with your VMUs and your jump packs and all your other Dreamcast accessories. And we're going to put it in just like this. So that's how it looks. Now you really didn't see the VMU on the original controller because you had that arch right there on the Dreamcast with the logo, so you really didn't see the VMU's buttons, but that's okay. And then we're gonna put the jump pack in. Okay, now this feels like a Dreamcast controller. It's got a little bit of weight to it, and that's how it looks. And they've actually did something smart too. They put the wire in the back instead of coming out the bottom like the original Dreamcast did. Actually, you know what? I really didn't mind this too much back in the day. I never had a problem with this, but now with the modern day controllers, I recommend my cable coming out of the top. But they couldn't put this wire on the top, so they put it right there on the back. So that's pretty smart. And yep, and that's what the end looks like. You just pop that right into the Dreamcast. And yeah, so I'm gonna be using this controller on some of my upcoming walkthroughs, so we're gonna be testing that out. But I really like this. And it feels really good in your hands. Like I said before, they make some other controllers, so definitely check those out. I'm going to drop all of the links down into the description. If you have any comments, please let me know. I'm going to have some more videos coming up pretty soon. I want to thank everybody for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.